how to help your kids financially. Want to help your kids without screwing up their mindset or your own retirement? From trash deposits to trash partners, we're breaking down how to give without giving it all away.
We are back in your life, and today you want to help your kids get ahead. It's a very common goal. Maybe it's helping them buy their first home or giving them a leg up financially. Maybe it's university fees, first cars. But how do you do it without spoiling them? Mike, very common goal to want to help your kids get ahead financially.
Yeah, we see it a lot with the mortgages space, with the deposit, top up for the deposit. And it's not just a gift, sometimes parents will say, look, I don't have any equity. I'm not in the position to do this, but you little Jimmy and Sarah, you come live with me. You pay $50 a week. You're not paying your full rent and I'll help you save, right? So there's 1,000 different ways you can kind of package it up. So yeah, really common in my space in the mortgages. Often though, people do it at their own detriment, which I find when you try and tell them that, they don't listen.
And I will lose that argument 80% of the time because we are not thinking logically. We are thinking from our heart. Sometimes we make mistakes when we think from our heart, Mike.
Sometimes you do make mistakes with your heart, James, but let's put my love life aside. Right, today, what are we going to cover? We'll talk about how to build wealth, right? Because there are different ways you can go about helping your kids. And one of them, building wealth for yourself instead of just dishing it out to them. Knowing when you're in a financial position to do it. We'll probably talk about how to ensure you don't spoil them, because it's quite common too. And then we'll talk about some ways that you can actually help them, but structure it smartly so that, their greedy partners can't get their hands on it in divorce.
Their sticky little fingers. So I want to get straight into it in terms of one question I get all the time. You have a baby, it's very exciting. You want to set themselves up for the future. So you go, well, I want to drip feed into an investment. The first thing I would say is there's two ways we can actually do this. The first way is we do regularly drip feed into an account for them. The second way, which is probably my preference, is we focus on getting you ahead, growing your wealth to a point that we can take a lump sum out in the future. The reason I like that one, Mike, is we're not splitting our efforts. We're kind of concentrating on one thing and working it out down the line. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't mind either way, to be honest, because some people don't have the financial discipline, and the separate accounts and the emotional attachment to that other account or investment just helps them to keep it a little bit more separate. And for families maybe on a tighter budget, that can sometimes help just to make sure that there's some money in the pot or there's something going towards the kids.
For sure. So, and I do agree with that. If you don't have the structure, definitely drip feed. Now, let's talk about the ways you can drip feed, because this is where people make huge mistakes. So there's 3 different ways I see people do it. We put it into KiwiSaver. We put it into a managed fund or an index fund, which is an unlocked version of KiwiSaver, or we put it into a bank account. Now, let me give you an example recently of a client who did this the wrong way. So I had somebody recently come to me. They were actually a divorced couple, and it was quite good. They were both on the call. I thought really responsible. They go, we have $24,000 for our 14-year-old daughter. We want to make sure when she's 21 that we've invested it, and we can give her the lump sum to help her with university or whatever. First thing that goes through my mind, Mike, she's already 14. Like, we've wasted 14 years of returns. And I go, where is this money? It's in a bank
deposit,
account.
Bank account? Yeah,
it's in a bank account. So the problem with that is we have, if we're talking about from birth, 21 years plus, longer if we're talking about buying your first home, to get this to grow for us. And what is the only guaranteed investment, Mike, that will go backwards over the long term?
Term deposits.
And that's because it gets eroded by inflation. It's stable. It won't go up and down. But you have 2 decades to work with.
Yeah.
We're going to see tariffs. We're going to see GFCs. We're going to see COVIDs. We're going to see tech bubbles burst. But over that period of time, if we invest into shares, if we invest into property funds, we're going to end up with 10% over those 2 decades. So I've got an example for you. If that example of just leaving money in the bank, if that 14-year-old girl, by the time she's 21, if she stays in the bank, she's got under $30,000. But if we start again and we go, okay, let's say we've started with $10,000 at birth and we've got $1,000 a year, $20 a week that we're going to regularly drip feed into an investment account.
Yeah.
And I've assumed 7%, which is after tax, but before inflation. By the time she is 21, with those regular drip feeds of $20 a week, $1,000, Michael.
Yeah, that's insane. I reckon we rename term deposits to trash deposits because they are literally just trash.
The only benefit really of term deposit rates starting to come down is people's eyes become open again. And they go like, oh, these returns are horrible.
Yeah.
But you should have never been in term deposits. The return on term deposit actually stays the same because term deposits are tied to inflation pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Which means that you think you're getting 8%, but you're not getting 8% because once you take off tax, you're really just still going backwards once you calculate in inflation.
Yeah. I really like the drip feeding approach, and I really like it for a couple of reasons. I talked about before, there's some separation of the funds. These are for the child. And if you are putting it into a KiwiSaver account, it is locked away, right? Until they can use their deposit for their first home or they retire. The really edge case that I like for that is if you are in a risky kind of profession or business and it goes under, that KiwiSaver is still locked up.
Yeah.
A liquidator can't come after that.
The liquidator's coming for the kids' university fund. Depressing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's a really good point. I see constantly people going, I'm going to use KiwiSaver as that vehicle to get that 10%. You just got to, if we think, so my son's 2.5, right? Cooper, very much into Spider-Man at the moment, Mike, watching it every morning. Go, Spidey, go. If you think about in 2 decades' time, with the rate around house prices, how they're increasing, there's no guarantee that my son's going to want to buy a house. He might want to, buy a truck to start a trade or do an OE or do something completely different. And that KiwiSaver vehicle is very restricted with what you can do with it.
Yeah, but I don't always think that's a bad thing, right? If my parents had given me 81 grand at 21, would I have used it for a deposit? Hell no. You know what I mean? So I actually don't mind that there is some restriction around it. And I guess you need to think about your financial position as the parents and what you want for your kids, right? Because I don't have kids. I have a cat. If my cat was a kid, there's no way in hell I would give him cash, right? I would make sure it was KiwiSaver. He's an angry little bastard.
If 21-year-old Michael got $81,000, how are you spending it?
Oh, I'd probably just go traveling. I'd literally probably just go traveling, which, again, OE, call it what you want. But my OE at 25 would have been very different to my OE at 21 had someone just given me the cash. Yeah.
Yep. And especially for guys where your brain's not fully developed until 25.
Not sure mine is now.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So you talked about whether parents are in a financial position to help their kids. I think this is a really, really big one to talk about. And it can go actually both ways. So the main thing, there is really, you might be going, what is the number? What financial position do I need to be in to be able to help my children? And I can't give you a number on this podcast because it depends on your situation. What you need to do is go, what are my goals? So really at the end of the day, everybody has the same 4 goals. We want to live in a certain home. We want to have a certain lifestyle now. We want to be able to retire at a certain age. And some people want to be able to help our children. What you need to do is go reverse engineer your plan and go, what is the priority of those goals? What do the numbers look like, the timeframes? And am I on track to achieve those? Opposed to just going, little Jimmy's great. He's got a good job. I really want to help him out. I'm going to give him money. That is a really foolish way to do it. And your future self might be quite angry that you did that. You need to actually think about it in a lot more detail.
Yeah, 100%. And along with all of this, the education piece needs to be there because, if you're building a good foundation around financial education, financial literacy, how to save, how to budget, how to spend money, putting those building blocks in place, then you're just increasing your chance of success, right? Or giving them a better outcome when they do come into the cash.
I can't wait till I can get Cooper's pocket money program set up. I think I've ever told you about it before?
You told me about it before.
Oh, it's so good. If you want me to talk about the pocket money program again, put it in the comments and we'll talk about it another
You
episode.
need a math degree to work it out. It's about a 40-minute episode.
Oh, there's a benchmark for minimum expectations. Then there's jobs listed with different values. I'm not going to do it. You're going to have to tell me if you want us to run through it.
I want to jump back to the education piece just a little bit because I think, fundamentally, you've got to teach your kids about money. right? And they've got to have a positive relationship with money. And that starts from the parents because, school's not going to do that. The internet's definitely not going to teach them that. If anything, it would be the opposite, where they have a really negative relationship to money and kind of status symbols. James, talk me through that as a parent. Like, how are you thinking about this?
So the big thing is, if you give your kids money and you haven't given them the skills or you're not seeing the right behaviors, you're really burning your own cash at the end of the day. So we have to not just give them the money, like you said, but go, well, it's essentially you want to be the fuel on the fire, right? You're seeing the right behaviors and then you add to it. Now, the big thing with money with children is it's actually quite simple. You just need to talk to them about money. So you need to be saying, we're not buying this because we haven't saved up enough, or making sure that you're not using credit cards. Like really basic stuff. Like, we don't need to be talking about hedge funds and investment strategies. The very basics are going, we spend less than we earn and we save for things that we want.
Yeah, 100%, right? And I think having those discussions in a productive manner, even if you got to put on a little bit of a performance, right? Just, in front of kids can really help with that. Because then it's not just that you're explaining it to them. It's, I've watched mum and dad have a discussion about this, agree on it, and come to an outcome.
Yeah, and you are kidding yourself if you think you can pull a fast one over your kids and they're not picking up the behaviors that you model. So if you say one thing and do something different, they're going to know. A perfect example. So Cooper's only 2.5, right? And so Hannah and I went to the gym the other morning and we dropped him off with my stepmom Jody and my sister Caitlin, and they looked after him for an hour. Picked up Cooper afterwards. He gave me word for word the whole discussion they had at 2.5. Now, Jody, she loves a little gossip session, right? She loves to get...
Don't we all? It's a social thing. I'm on your side for this, Jody. Don't worry about it.
A little bit of tea, right?
Yeah.
So I gave Jody a heads up and I was like, hey, just to let you know, if you're talking smack about anybody, if you do it with Cooper there, it's coming straight back to your boy. So anyway, even at a very young age, they pick all of this stuff up.
On the flip side of that, though, what you don't want to do is kind of create that fear or that scarcity mindset around money too much with kids. Just being like, there's never enough, having them kind of stressed and worried about it, because that can be equally kind of detrimental as well.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely goes both ways. So where I want to move on to now is, let's say you've got some money and you want to gift it, but maybe they've got a spouse. The question is, how do you gift it? And we're going to talk about all of that after this break.
Looking to help your kids get on the property ladder? Well, gifting them some cash, loaning them some money, co-owning the property with them, all comes with their own set of benefits and negatives. So speak to a mortgage broker to find out what's right for you. To get in touch, click in the show notes below. Now, back to the episode.
So Mike, let's talk about situations where a parent wants to gift their child some money to buy a property. 2 questions for you. How common is that as a percentage of your clients, and what would be the average amount you'd see gifted?
First home buyers, I would say the gifting is about 80%, 75, 80%. Help, about 90%. Some form of help is around 90%. To be honest though, man, second home buyers, like upgrading, that sort of stuff, parents are still helping with that as well.
Shout out to the Nepo babies.
Absolutely. And what's the average amount? To be honest, man, there is no real average. Like it ranges from 10 grand, 5 grand, or like I said, living with the parents for a while to save money, right the way through to 900,000. I've got customers at the moment that are selling and buying, and they want to upgrade, but they're going to take a loss. So mum and dad are going to plug that loss for a little bit while they kind of do the transaction, and they'll pay them back. So, and these are, grown adults with children, right? So it just
and man and Webber, I assume, the property market drops. Doesn't impact you. If you got rich parents, they'll plug in the gap. Love it.
100%.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's jump to the different ways that you can gift money, because this stuff really, really does matter and can have a huge impact potentially if the relationships break up. So talk us through the different options.
Cool. Easiest way to do it is a gift, right? And that is basically mum and dad or whoever. And actually, sorry, not whoever. It's got to be reasonable, right? It can't just be like, oh, I ran into this guy, pushing trolleys in the Countdown supermarket and, he's gifting me 20 grand. A bank will not accept that. That is too close to the money laundering scale. But let's just say it's mum and dad giving you some cash. They sign a gifting certificate. That gifting certificate just says to the bank, hey, this is a gift. It is not a loan. It is the property will remain unencumbered from our side. It is non-repayable. There is no regular interest charge, and you don't have to pay it back.
So what are the downsides of that approach, Mike?
Cool. Basically, one, for the parents, it's a gift, so you don't get the money back. And sometimes it's a gift, and the kids do pay it back, in the background. But basically, for all intents and purposes, that money has been gifted legally from you to them. And then a lot of the times it goes into the family home. So again, I'm no lawyer here, but that kind of becomes relationship property. So if they were to split up, that gift that's gone in, that's that's out of their hands and it's into relationship property. So it gets split now. Yep. So let's say your son or daughter is going into the relationship with, I don't know, some deposit. The other one their partner has no deposit, and you're gifting 100 grand. Well, if they split up, that's relationship property. That's 50 grand there, 50 grand there. So they lose that part of that gift.
Yeah, and from a stats perspective, 50% of people end up divorced. So there's a 50% chance that the spouse is going to walk away with half of that deposit. Yeah,
the advantage, it's cheap and quick, right? Because you don't need a solicitor to sort it out. And we've got a stock standard gifting template that we use, and it can take you 2 seconds to fill it out.
It's like your local Chinese restaurant. It's cheap, it's quick, it's okay, it does the job.
Shout out to your local Chinese restaurant.
Okay.
Golden Horse, Takapuna, you know what it is. So
very good. Unusual name for my local one, Golden Swallow, but let's move on.
Cool.
The next option, Mike, is a loan.
Yeah, cool. So you can't take out a loan to get a loan. Right. So you can't basically go to, for a deposit, you can't go to, I don't know, GE Finance and take out a personal loan and then go use that.
You could back in the day.
We've got back in the day.
We've got a couple of mates that they didn't just pre or post GFC, got a car loan to buy their first home.
Yeah.
Can't do it anymore though.
You can't do that anymore, right? So if it's say 100 grand and your parents are like, I don't want to gift this to you, or it could be any amount of money really, but so let's say it's a lot of money and it's coming from a family trust or something. They don't want to gift that to you because they're like, actually, this is quite a bit. I want you to pay this back. But again, if you have a regular repayment and interest bearing, like an interest charge on that, and it can be called in at any time, a bank's not going to accept that, because basically what can happen is they can settle the property. And then your parents could turn around 2 days later and be like, we need that 100 grand back, right? And that puts you in a really bad position. So what you do is you get a deed of acknowledgement of debt. And that deed of acknowledgement of debt basically says, this is a loan from us to them for the deposit for the house. It will remain a loan. It is non-interest bearing. There are no regular repayments. And it can only be called in once the mortgage has been completely paid off or the property is sold. So then what happens is they are lending you the money, so they are protected. They can get that money back if it all falls apart. It's kept basically separate from relationship property, because the way you usually divide out your equity at the end, if you've got a relationship property disagreement, is you take the value of the house, you sell it, you take off the mortgages and their loan, and then whatever's down the bottom, that's what gets divided. So that will get paid back to the parents because one of the conditions has been hit, which is the property has been sold.
Yeah. And then the parents might use that money, then re-gift it back to the child potentially, so they can then go buy another house by themselves.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just a way to protect it, especially if you're giving large amounts of money, or you think, the partner's a bit of a shithead. And then basically the other thing with that though, a little bit more complex, usually requires a solicitor to sign it off. So there's a little bit of cost involved.
Yep, but worth protecting against the shitheads.
Yeah, 100%.
So the last one is an equity partnership, co-ownership.
Yeah, cool, co-ownership. So this is becoming more and more common, actually, I would say. And banks have some pretty good products for this now, where basically you can co-own the property with your parents, right? Or another family member. And what happens is, let's say I've got a 10% deposit, and I really like this house for $1 million. I've got 100 grand. Technically, I need a 20% deposit. You can do it with 90%. It's just going to cost you more on interest rates. You're going to have to get a registered valuation. You're not going to get as good a deal on your cash back from the bank. So you're probably like 4 or 5 grand worse off straight from the start, right? What you can do is say, hey, mum and dad, you've got a house. Can I secure 100K of my loan against your house, which means the bank really has 200 grand of equity, your 100K of deposit, their 100K against their house, and then 800,000 of mortgage against my house. So it's like a co-ownership. It's cross-securitization really is what it is. The parent's guarantee is limited to the amount that they are putting up. So their guarantee will be limited to 100 grand. And what you generally do is put your loan on interest only and pay their loan off first because you want to get them out of the equation as quick as possible. Benefits of that, you've gone from having a high LVR loan or low deposit loan with bad interest rates, bad cash back, you can't go get a pre-approval, all this sort of stuff, to you got a 20% deposit. You can get a pre-approval. You don't need a register valuation. You get 0.8, 0.9, 1% cash back. So just a much better situation. And you get those special interest rates.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. So they're the 3 different options. These, I guess the legal agreements are really important when we're talking about those last 2, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And a bank's going to make your parents get independent legal advice, just so they know what they're signing up to if they're doing the co-ownership model. And a lot of times people will waive that, and usually they waive it for the deed of acknowledgement of debt as well.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so they're all the different options of how you can help your kids get ahead financially. It's really noble. It's a really nice thing to do to give your kids that head start in life. But you just got to make sure that you're modeling those right behaviors. You're teaching them about money early, that you're using the right structures. You're not sacrificing your own lifestyle, your own goals to be able to prioritize your kids. And then when you do get there, you're having the right conversations with the mortgage broker, with the lawyers to make sure it's all nice and tidy. Much love to Lighthouse Financial for sponsoring this episode. Please subscribe to the channel. Give us a review. Give us a like, and we'll catch you
next time. But if you're looking at this and you're thinking, I've got a kid, I need some more tips, we have a ton of episodes on how to help your kids, how to help your kids around money, all of that sort of stuff. We'll link them in the show notes. Cheers.